Because I teach and direct the Writers Project, sometimes the writing is third of import, or not importance, but financial significance, shall we say. So what happens is, for me, using the idea to submit is encourages me to put something out there. So for me, I'm actually not terribly upset at rejection. I'm delighted at acceptance, but for me, it makes me take the work to another level.
There's two different ways, you know. One piece of this is the business of the business, you know, and then another piece of this is like my brain just came up. It's like riding the tiger, you know. There's a savage beast, and you're taking this precious little thing, you know, whether it's your own emotion or your own, you know, relating to a script or your words or your music or whatever it is, and putting it out there for criticism, you know, and it's just torturous, really. We're all masochists, basically.
I'm in uncharted territory with my present occupation, because a show like Phantom of the Opera is the closest thing a musician could find to like an annuity. This is something unheard of, something that runs in excess of 20 years. But unlike, I think one of my least favorite things is being at auditions, like what Katie would have to go through or something, because my heart always goes out to the actor, because the thick skin required and the amount of rejection and the sheer numbers that you see, and you are competing for sometimes one position, it's frightening. I always find that, you know, as fortunate as I am now to have that kind of steady security, it affords me such freedom to pursue all the beautiful things that I love in music.
You know, this duality between making the art and presenting, and there's such a different things. You know, so, you're talking about the skin, that you have to have alligator skin to be out there, and you have to learn, I guess, to let it happen. And it's not only hard enough to do a body of work in whatever that field is, but then also to send it out there. It's almost like, you know, you're in the business of selling eggs, and you've got to make sure that those eggs are getting there intact, and nobody's going to throw them back at you. And most of the time, they will throw them back at you.
My parents were very supportive in a way. I kind of grew up in an atmosphere of like benevolent neglect, being the youngest of four. And my father was in Japan as a medical doctor, started a hospital in the early 50s. And he was doing what he loved to do, and that was kind of a beacon for us to just go for it, you know, go for what you love. And my mother, she had a very highly developed aesthetic sense of Japanese antiques, and she collected, you know, would root through junk stores and pull out these beautiful, like museum quality pottery or woodwork, and so we grew up with this surrounding us.
I mean, I could definitely talk about my mom, for sure. She was a poet and a painter, and a frustrated one, and she had a really hard time with putting any of her work out there, so she basically didn't. And I was always just like, put your work out, put your work out, put your work out, you're so good, you're so good. And she just had to take another class, she had to take another, you know, get another accreditation. Nobody's going to listen to me because I'm, you know, 40-something years old, nobody's going to, you know, pay attention to me. And it drove me to sort of say, you can do it.
My mother painted as well, and I think she started once I was maybe in 7 or 8 years old, self-taught. And this was in the 50s, and she did landscapes. And then in my house I have this incredible, similar to a Jackson Pollock, where she was experimenting, and then a Cubist painting. So I always saw her doing what she wanted to do. She told me that she wrote poetry, but that my father burned it all. So that was a different kind of inspiration.
I find my biggest challenge is keep retaining an amateur spirit about myself. By that I mean the meaning of the word amateur is derived from the word to love, one who loves. And it's why I think my favorite thing I do, and what it is probably my most passionate thing right now, is working with my all-amateur church choir. Because they're only there for one reason, and that is out of love.
Waking up in the morning and going to bed at night and doing what you love in between. That's a measure of success for me. And all the other stuff, galleries and shows and recognitions and awards, they just come back to this all the time. And I think if you learn how to keep it real, you're talking about being an amateur, then you realize that basically, and not just in the visual arts or in all arts, all our names are written in pencil.
I come from the 1950s, from the Beat generation, and it was all about being in the moment and being spontaneous and taking risks and enjoying the process, and if anything, saying what the hell with, whatever the critics were going to say. It was about enjoying it, and that quote, that rejection of acceptance and rejection attitude.
I was the odd kid that I didn't have any friends, and my girlfriend died, my parents died, and I used to go, there's a payphone in a plaza downtown Bucharest, and I used to go there and put a coin in and dial a fictional number and talk. And now I'm thinking, it's like, what in the world was I thinking? There was nobody nobody I would talk to, but I would just talk because other people were talking around me, and I felt connected, and I felt like I can keep going. And that was that moment when I said, I'm going to do this. I had no idea how.
For me, there were two moments. One, I was 10 and wrote the only poem in my life that rhymed. And I had been reading about Edmund St. Vincent Millay.
I'll do it.
And I went downstairs and I told my parents that I was going to be a poet. And then when I was 23, I was in a car accident and I was driving and my mother was killed. So at that young age, I realized that was the moment I was tending my spirit. Either or everything was going to change one way or another. So the only thing I knew was for me to keep in some way doing the thing I loved, which was writing and acting and painting.
I mean, my religion is making a better world. I mean, it sounds really dorky, but it's like, making the world a better place to live ethically, honestly, with giving back, being kind to each other and to the earth, and doing what you love to do. And helping others do that. If we can, if we're all doing the best we can at what we love to do in any given moment, it is a better world.